So Judith Butler, she's the foremost American scholar. She's at UC Berkeley, and she has this great clip unpacking the way that gender is a performance in the ways that it's also performative. So it's like it's repeated and it's done again and again, and how it carries meaning. And so she really unpacks gender in this video clip. I'm not going to play it. You can go ahead and play it yourself. And then this is important to notice: the experience of people who do not fit into sex and gender binaries like transgender, intersex, or non-binary people. Yes, definitely. So accounting for all this space in between, right? And that's the problem with a lot of those identity categories, right? Is they're binary, meaning they're binary systems of either one or the other, and that's not true, right? All identity's always been more complex than that. People are both and. People are on the move, right? Identities change, um, and the meaning of identities also changes over time, right? The meaning of being a man in the 1950s and the meaning of being a man today has changed, has shifted. The meaning of being a woman in 1890, right, is vastly different than what it means to be a woman in 2020, right? And that's another example of how gender is socially meaningful and changes with time. Again, Butler is talking about how we perform our gender, and just think about it, right? Like the way that you have been taught to hold your body, to move your body, the way you've been taught to use your voice, right? The way you've been taught to interact with other genders or members of the same gender, right? And how that's been socially reinforced with time. The toys we play with from a young age, right? The activities we engage in, right? All kind of help to reinforce these ideas that we have about gender. But again, uh, it, there are all these experiences that fall in between gender and in between sex, and to be open to that and explore that and to understand and be accepting of all different kinds of people. Also, patriarchy. Patriarchy is a form of social organization where men are dominant and women are subordinate. Yes, and this is been an ancient system. I think the early systems of social organization, women were more in charge, and then I think since sort of the advent of agriculture and these sorts of things, patriarchy has been what a lot of cultures are now. And yeah, patriarchy is just basically the system that values men over women and that values masculine traits over feminine traits. And patriarchy, right, is really also being challenged, right? Who says a system of male dominance is what kind of society we should have, right? And there's been a movement to make societies more egalitarian, right? So, and take something like parental leave, right? So, allowing both men and women to take parental leave, right, is more egalitarian, or versus where the woman gets time off to have a baby, or and the man is supposed to work, right? It's really a kind of a patriarchal organization. But basically, patriarchy is a system where men are dominant and women are subordinate. And really, the feminist movement is about breaking down patriarchy and moving towards a more egalitarian system. A lot of people think, feminism is about, it's a misnomer that feminism is about attacking men, and it's not true. So oftentimes I'll have a classroom and I'll say, how many of you believe that men and women should be paid the same amount for the same amount for the same amount of work? So if men and women do the same job, that we both should be paid the same, right? How many of you believe that? Raise your hands. And everybody raises their hand. And then I say, congratulations, you've all just identified as feminism, as feminists. Because that's all it is. That's all it's arguing for, is that men and women be treated equally. It's not arguing that they are the same, because we've been socially constructed differently, but that we are treated the same, and that we have the same opportunities, right? And there's ways in that also helps men, right? Yeah, it's great for men to have paid leave and to take time to be there for their children, right? And so it makes it more egalitarian for all of us, and that is really what the feminist movement is all about. So this wraps up gender. So gender is a key social construction, and yeah, it's definitely socially constructed. There might be aspects of it, right, of course, that are biological, right, but they always seem to get conflated in our society with the social construction of what we think, of what we really think it is. Even something like intersex, right? The idea that a baby is born and it's a male or a female, right, is actually also not true. Oftentimes we can't determine the sex of the baby, and that's a beautiful thing, right? And so what they used to do in the 50s and before was they would actually assign the baby a sex, based on like some arbitrary measurement of their genitalia, and then they would go about giving them surgery to make the baby either male or female, right? So if even biological sex is purely natural, then you wouldn't have to do that, right? You wouldn't have to do that. And so now when a baby's born and they quote unquote can't tell what the sex of the baby is, doctors say take your baby home and love your baby and let your baby identify with what it wants to be.